Professional Operator Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Nautilus AI Solutions, which is actually us. We work with performance and wellness-based businesses to give them the systems and infrastructure they need to grow without losing what makes them great. I'm your host, Noah Tomes, and today I'm joined by Craig Lane, holistic nutritionalist, master herbalist, and the founder of Health Alchemy in Santa Cruz, California. Craig has been in the practice for over 25 years, working with individuals and groups using the assessment method that most practitioners have never seen. Craig's story, though, does start with a broken neck at age 21. And that survival kind of shaped everything of how he thinks and how the body heals. So, Craig, I would love for you to give the audience, a quick snapshot of who you serve, what Health Alchemy is, and, what the practice actually looks like day to day for you right now.
All right. Thanks, Noah. I'd say let's break down the word, first of all. That was how I started when I started lecturing in health about 30 years ago when I was sort of a greenhorn. That was the question, was what is health? People just kind of take it for granted, right? And so I've been asking people in audiences over 30 years what that is. So you have health and you have alchemy, right? So at a young age, I was looking around at the adults kind of going, they aren't healthy, but I didn't even really know what health was. I just knew what it wasn't. Bickering with, I see my parents bickering, and I see adults having to drink to, quote, have a good time when you're a kid, at Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm like everybody has to always drink that stuff. And, when you're a kid, you don't know any better. It's just like, why are they all weird? All of a sudden they drink a few of those things and now they're all weird, and I feel like, they're why? And then, so it was a lifelong sort of inquiry of what is health actually, and are we actually a healthy society? And so I'll just say that briefly. Health, as its root, is the word whole, some variation in the ancient, linguistics, wholeness. And you could draw it all the way to the word yoga in the East, means the union of body, mind, spirit in the present moment, like everything's present. And then you could say health is the Western version of yoga. You're whole. Everything about you is present. Now, what do you think the Webster's dictionary definition of health is?
Probably something along the line of like, I don't know how to put it, but like stable vitals and like checking all the boxes for the most part.
This is the reason why I'm teaching health, okay? So I'll give you the answer and then I'll tell you why it's a bad answer. And it's fair. It's a fair answer for the quote, normal people out there, but the absence of symptom is
That's a good definition.
So, but it's a low value definition. If that's your value of health, is just the absence of symptoms, and it's not the union of body, mind, spirit in the present moment, so we're programmed into these low ideals about this big. But my teacher's ideals, as I pursued this, were this big. And I started seeing we're being limited to this much bounty, gold, beauty, abundance when we could have this much. You see my point? There's nothing wrong with the Webster's dictionary definition of health, just like it's not wrong to pursue a jack-in-the-box job your whole life. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just you're setting your sights a little low to work a jack-in-the-box and have a minimum wage job and live in a little box and take orders from the fake government that's actually a corporation. So you see my point is, there are those of us in this more the awakened and awakening crowd that you look at that and it's like looking down into a dark hole and going, that's not good enough. Okay. So that's where I was with it, was like, no. And I learned early on, so what is health? I ask people, and get a lot of different definitions over my last 30, 35 years. And then alchemy. Now alchemy is a whole story, but alchemy drew me because of this alchemist, Paracelsus. See if I can spell that. He was about 1400. And I don't know if I'm even saying it right. Celsus, Paracelsus. And then a guy named John Dee. And John Dee had this symbol. You can look it up even on the web. You can go to Google and search for it. And the symbol is called the hieroglyphic, like hieroglyphics, the hieroglyphic monad, M-O-N-A-D. And he claimed that this symbol summarizes all of life in one symbol. Pretty bold claim, right?
Oh, yeah.
So John Dee was an alchemist for Queen Elizabeth about 1580. And he was using crystal balls. They called it scrying back then. And he was channeling through crystal balls. And guess what presented itself to him? This is a side story. These angels that were actually demons posing as angels said, the New World Order starts now. 1580 in Britain. The New World Order starts now.
Has that not been a pattern that repeats throughout history, though?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's patterns. So alchemy, if you just view it as transformation and health, then I put the two together and I go, we can transform our health from these low ball, we've dug a hole for ourselves by drinking 10 cups of coffee a day and smoking 20 cigarettes and drinking a case of beer every night, we dig ourselves a hole, and so we got to pull ourselves out, and that's via transformation. So health alchemy then is the transformation of the lower self to the higher self, you could say.
What does that, I guess, kind of process look like coming from that lower self and then, kind of raising and coming through that transformation to more of a higher self?
Great question. Those kind of questions that I ask, great. Which shows me, like, the fact that you can come up with a question like that shows me that you are at a higher level versus just asking some shallow level questions. So the first step is awareness, just like we have to be self-aware, and that does not come through our own will. That's what they call grace. Each thought in our head, we can choose to have thoughts. Like I can say, okay, I want to think about this red beverage I got here over and over again. But when we let go at some point, our breathing and our thinking become involuntary. And the old mystics would call that grace. You cannot control your internal airtime moment to moment throughout the day. If you try, you get numb. I know because I've tried with concentration techniques and manipulative techniques. But in the end, a lot of what people call meditation are nothing more than fancy concentration techniques.
I agree. Yeah. Maybe dive a little bit into the difference between thoughts and thinking as well. I feel like that could be a good topic because I heard you mention you can't control the thinking that happens in your head, but I guess from my outlook on it is more of you can't control the thoughts that come into your head, into your psyche, but you can control what it is that you think about and how you react to what you're thinking about.
That's
So
the
I'm kind of
grace
curious
part.
your take on that.
Yeah, that's the grace part.
Okay.
So
Got it.
I just call that airtime. Like that's what true letting go meditation is letting go and letting everything be. And this has changed people's lives. So the thoughts then would be the involuntary stream based on our maybe our past lives. I can't prove that, but maybe our past lives, our current life situation that led up to where we are now. And that's out of our control. But we can, like, one of the 10 commandments is, adultery. And I'm sexually oriented, so it's not fair for somebody to say that's adultery for a thought that randomly popped in my head about a woman that I saw walking down the street. That's not fair. But if I start adding logs on the fire by thinking about her consciously, you see where the distinction lies there. I got flagged. Something popped up in my screen of consciousness. I could have chosen to let it go like a cloud, because that's what my first metaphor in meditation was like, oh my God, I'm not my thoughts. And yet,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is making that shift from becoming the observer of your thoughts through the practice of meditation.
well, there's actually 3 steps. There's becoming aware that we're the observer. Well, there's the unaware part, and that's where most of the world's still in that. They're not aware and they're not thinking much. They're not. They're in the involuntary thought.
Everything's autonomous. Yeah, everything's autonomous.
There's emotion wrapped up in this, and there's another complicated thing about that, but we could go into that later. Because thoughts cause emotions, and then emotion causes more thoughts, and you get caught in this spiral. Because the body reacts to a bad thought, like, I'm a bad person. Then our body will make hormones and neurotransmitters to verify the thought.
That's such an important point too, because it ties so heavily into self-talk and negative self-talk at that, because your body processes everything for what it is, not for what you think it is. So whenever you talk bad on yourself, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because your mind interprets that as I am that. So it just becomes internalized and it just starts that process.
Right. So you can have an intervention, and one of my interventions, like this is part of that, we're answering your initial question, like what does this look like practically, right? So one of the interventions could be, I used to have sticky notes everywhere I went, like kind of like wake up. So I'd have one by my computer, one in my bathroom, one on the rearview mirror of my car, one when I went to the,
wake up.
Everywhere I would go, there'd be a sticky note, basically, wake up, you're asleep. And it wouldn't be like that, but just wake up. And so you get enough of those, and then because we can't do our work when we're asleep at the wheel in trigger and reaction, we can't, because we're not available. We're walled off in that little bubble of reaction. But we can be asleep less. This is my report to people. We can be asleep less by doing our work when we're awake. And then if I was asleep when I first woke up at age 25, I thought I was awake, but I had this experience at age 25, and it's exactly as the teachings point out, that once you have an experience of the divine, of enlightenment, whatever, even any other experience is 1,000,000 times less than that moment of revelation, epiphany, insight. of the experience of non-experience. So that for me, it was like, oh shit, what I thought was love was way down here, and this is actually, it's real because I didn't believe it could be true. It's too good to be true. I'm loved no matter what I do. That was the experience. I am love, and no matter what I do in this life, I'm still going to be loved. Now, that's
I
too
don't
good
want
to
to
be
pivot
true
too
for
much, but let's dive down. I want to hear that experience, the experience that kind of shifted you when you were 25. We can get back to kind of the practical implementation of these kind of practices and all that kind of stuff. But I'm more curious on your experience because that's how people learn is through stories.
I'll just start off with because my teacher at the time, he warned about trying to mimic another's experience. So if you're watching this, just keep in mind that this is my experience. And if you aim for the specifics of my experience, you won't get an experience.
Mm, that's really good.
Yeah.
All right,
So
let's hear it.
my experience then was I had, and by the way, I had a sincere desire. And that's one of the things that my teacher taught was like, spirituality, there's only one thing I'm looking for, and that's sincerity. Are they sincere in their desire to move forward? Because he calls that contamination often drives people, the contamination of the programming we're so subject to. So I I was led to this experience at age 25. I had broken my neck at age 21 in a car accident. That was entirely my fault. I was playing Dukes of Hazzard with some friends, going surfing at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't on anything. I was basically straight. I was actually a punk rocker and this band called Minor Threat in Washington, D.C., no less. Ian MacKaye was proud of the straight edge. So I was straight and drinked and smoked, didn't go to parties. I was straight and proud of it. And so, but that didn't include, of course, caffeine. So I was all caffeinated out, jacked up, going, I'm going to get sideways going on the freeway, show off for my friends following me. And so I've lost control of the vehicle, and then I broke my neck. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt either. The ultimate 21-year-old arrogance.
That's bad. I used to think it was so cool to wear a seatbelt until you start, like, nowadays you see those videos of old people with like the result of not having a seatbelt. That's actually how my uncle died, was not wearing a seatbelt.
Really?
And yeah, he had gotten into an accident and flew through the windshield.
That's what happened to me. My head hit the windshield. If I would have been wearing a seatbelt, the paramedic told me. So I had these two. I was really into music, so I had the big Pioneer 6x9, 150-watt speakers in the back.
Nice.
You know what I'm talking about, though. They weren't
Oh, I know what you're
beatbox
talking
level, but
about.
they were pretty close, and I was
Yeah.
rocking out, getting
Especially
sideways.
at 21. Yeah.
21, you're
Yeah.
closer to that age than I am now. And, oh my God. So if I would have been wearing a seat, what had happened was I hit this embankment and I lurched forward, and the Pioneer speaker I hit with such force it came out of its mounting and slammed me in the back of the head right here. And so if I would have been wearing a seatbelt, I would have been locked in position and it would have
And
crushed
it would
my
have,
skull
yeah.
from the
Oh,
back.
wow.
An act of grace, no less, that was.
Yeah.
So I'm getting sideways. I lose control of the vehicle. And for the first time in my life, I let go. I literally let go of the steering wheel. And I said, I didn't even believe in God. I didn't believe in any of it. But I'm like, I'm not going to gain control of this vehicle. I just let go. The car was going about 50 miles an hour. I was kind of going sideways. I just said, if I'm going to live, it's in whatever this is at hand. And I lived. And, in a lot of ways, the car, I mean, they had to get the jaws of life, and the car was so, my friends couldn't believe it, were following me. They're like, dude, the car hit, did an end over end, rolled on its side, and then landed face up.
Wow.
And my friends are like, dude, you look like a stuntman. And I said, God damn, I wish I would have been you guys watching me, because that would have been worth it. Than
Yeah, for
watching
sure.
myself flying through the air, and oh my God. So I got sent to the hospital, and then I had another godlike experience when they put the oxygen mask on me in the ambulance. And it was a 20-minute ambulance ride with that oxygen on me. It seemed like 1 minute. It was like a spiritual experience. I was half dreaming, one part of me, and the other half was kind of laying in the ambulance going, oh, I'm fucked. Because they had me completely immobilized because I tried to get up out of the car when I realized what had happened, and my whole left arm went numb. And then my friend goes, don't move, you probably broke something in your spine. And I'm like, oh, great. I just want to go fucking surf.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here I am. My friends are, coming, and I had just gotten this Audi 4000 four-door sedan. I love this car. It was a trick car. And so this is what grace is. So the thought pops in my head completely by grace, and it's like, what are we going to tell the cops? as I'm laying there with a broken neck.
And that's what you're worried about.
And that's what pops in my head because I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get the insurance money from the car, and if it was my fault, so I told my friends, I said, tell them that a dog ran in front of me from right to left. It's got to be right to left because the cop's gonna interview each of us separately. And sure enough, when I was in the hospital, the highway patrolman came and interviewed me and each of my friends separately, and all of our stories aligned. So I got my insurance money.
At least you got it, but it probably wasn't the best thing to be
It was
thinking
a
about in the
lie.
moment.
It
I'm
was a
sure
complete and
it was
total
a
lie. Yeah, it was totally my fault.
it was a programmed lie that you were unconscious of at the same time.
I just wanted to
Like, it
get my
wasn't your.
money, and I was always like, use the system, don't be used by it. My father kind of
Mm-hmm.
taught me that, so I'm like, I'm going to use the
Yep.
system, and you know. Anyways, so that the hospital, being in the hospital, and all, I had to receive care, and I'd been in the hospital before. The year before, I almost died of mononucleosis. They had the tracheectomy, and they were going to slice my throat, and that was the year before. At age 20.
What is?
They used to call it the kissing disease. You get it from kissing someone. It's a virus related to Epstein-Barr, EBV, and so my throat swelled up the summer before that, and I had to be hospitalized. I couldn't breathe, and I almost died. I kissed a woman who had it, and she was a carrier, gave it to me, and then it went right in here. And I don't believe in viruses now, so I honestly, I think she had the trigger for some toxicity that was dormant in me, because I had gotten 17,000 allergy shots as a teenager and as a child. 17,000 allergy shots over 10 years. They didn't do my allergies any good. But,
Yeah, right.
It's a sick care model. It's not healthcare, it's sick care. So they were trying to manage me and dumb me down from an early age. I have stories about that. But the experience then was, okay, I broke my neck. I'm going to have to change my whole life. The doctor says I'm never going to surf. I'm never going to walk normal. And I got angry about that, but then back to 25. So in those 4 years from 21 to 25, the first thing I was drawn to was a yoga class for my physical therapy after I got out of the halo brace. And you see how the story, you got to digress to add value to the story. So when I got out of that halo brace, I knew I was going to surf again. It was just a matter of time. So the doctor says you should never surf again. And I'm like, I'm surfing. You're not me. That's your projection, buddy. That's what you would do.
Which is super powerful to still hold, because there's a lot of people nowadays, when the doctor says something, they're going to take it for what it is, and they're not going to do anything else. They're not even going to try anything else.
Because they have a weak will. The doctor's stronger will overpowers their weaker will
Mm-hmm.
on some energetic level. So I was surfing 2 weeks out of the halo brace. 2 weeks. 3.5 months after a life-threatening broken neck, I was in the ocean at Moss Landing down here surfing. And my friends didn't want to drive me, but I told them, I had a car. I said, if you don't take me, I'm going alone. And if you want to feel guilty about me hurting myself being alone, you can do that. But I'm going whether you approve of it or not, because I'd rather die.
You sound just like me.
Here, you're going to really, and if you're watching this, this is the attitude you kind of need to have. I would rather die doing something I love than sitting on the couch wishing I was.
There you go. That's how it's done. Trust me, I'm the exact same way. This was a little earlier, but I had actually torn my lateral meniscus in my right knee playing football in high school. And I tore it my preseason game of high school. So we still had, the entire season ahead of us. Plus it's my senior year. So I'm like, fuck this, I'm playing. Plus I didn't even know at the moment that I had torn it. So preseason game, I tear it in a game. We get to the next week of practice. I'm like, damn, my knee's hurting a little bit. And I don't know if you're familiar with the meniscus, but you're usually not going to get pain until you're past 90 degrees. So I was an offensive lineman at the time as well. So I'm down in my stance at 90 degrees. I'm like, damn, my knee's hurting a little bit. So long story short, I played for a very small high school, and we didn't have our athletic trainer for 3 weeks, that preseason game, up until week 3. So I continue to practice and play 3 more weeks because there's no trainer there to assess me or anything. And I'm like, no, I'm playing. So I played 3 more practice and play 3 more weeks on that torn meniscus. She gets back after that 3rd week and she does a couple little tests, like bends my knee in a couple different ways. I'm like, yeah, that definitely hurts. And she's like, yeah, you should go get an MRI done. What do you know? I go to the doctor a week later, whatever it is. They do an MRI. Meniscus is torn. Like, fuck. And I look back, I'm like, damn, how did I play through all that? And looking back, it probably was just pure willpower, which is, a really good testament. To fast forward throughout the story, I end up getting my meniscus repaired, go through the surgery, get put in a knee brace. I stay in the knee brace for, or actually, I don't even, I stayed in the knee brace for just close to 3 weeks, I think. After week 1, I was back in the gym on crutches in my knee brace. So I was on the bench press with my leg just hanging off the side and my crutches posted up on the bench press, and I'm there just doing my entire workout, doing everything. Just the show resumed as normal. But throughout that entire process as well, I was supposed to have a 4 to 6 month recovery time through the doctors. So I was not supposed to be out of the brace bending my knee past 90 degrees until 4 to 6 months. Throughout that process of moving early, and I believe movement's the best medicine, moving early, I was back to lifting weighted past 90 degrees in like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, whatever it ended up being. So, and I'm still good to this day. That was probably a couple years ago now. I don't remember exactly.
My burning question is, were you able to play football that year? Be able to play? Oh, you didn't. You couldn't. Okay.
I
I was
couldn't.
hoping to hear like, yeah, halfway through the season, I was back on the field. And
That would have made it a freaking good story. A good story right there. No, I wish. That would have definitely been the icing on the cake.
yeah, so healing has this like, I work with a lot of cancer cases, and so there's always a psychic cancer to accompany the physical cancer. And I shock people that come to me. I had a woman years ago, she had breast cancer. And so I said, at what point, 3 to 6 months before you had the diagnosis, did you have a trauma in your life? And she gasped. She went, how do you know that? And I go, because we build up all this toxicity. Because cancer, if you view it's fungus and it's rot and it's cells that should have died and they're zombie cells. Hence those zombie movies, they're actually talking about our own cells that should die. And so I said, that's your kindling. You built up this big pile of kindling, of badness. And then your house burned down 6 months before your diagnosis. And your 2 children had left home, so you had the empty nest syndrome. Women get this one bad, the empty nest syndrome. The guys don't get it nearly as bad. And so she had the empty nest syndrome, her house burned down, and then she had all this toxicity in her body. So the match was the house burning down, which caused the cancer, which is the fire. And in most cases, that's what happens. And most people don't realize, that's why I'm up here talking today, is if you learn the laws of nature, the early warning signals, you don't get sick and you're not unconscious as much, and your recovery time, to your point. I've got a medical case I heard from Dr. Tom Cowan. This is a direct story. An emergency room case. The guy refused to have x-rays on his broken femur. He refused x-rays, and Tom's like, why don't you want an x-ray? And the guy said, because if I see a broken bone on an image, it's going to inhibit my mental healing of imagining my leg healing. So please don't show me that image. Don't even do it. I don't want it. Can you help me otherwise? And Cowan had been an herbalist like myself, and I know there's an herb it's called knit bone. The Indians called it knit, like knit the bone together. Comfrey. I grow it. I took it every day for 4 years to defy the FDA that said I was going to die of cancer. And my teacher said, go ahead, nothing's going to happen to you bad. So he put a pack of comfrey on his leg every day, changed it twice a day, and his femur was healed in 2 weeks. He was out walking around, broken femur, 2 weeks, with comfrey packs twice a day on it.
Wow. And I'm not familiar with what comfrey is. Is it like it's a topical? It's like something that you put on top, almost like an ice pack, I guess, something like that. I'm very unfamiliar with that.
I do have some leaves over here, but take a little bit. So imagine a plant's growing, and when the leaves are growing, you just chop the leaves up and mash it up. Or if I'm really desperate, I'll just chew it up, and you put it right on where the break is. You wrap it up with some ace bandages, and it's literally that simple.
And then it soaks through your skin.
Oh, yeah. You could, now there's DMSO, and people are catching up with that. You could add a little DMSO into the solution if you're watering it, like pounding it with a mortar and pestle, and then the DMSO is actually going to carry the... So comfrey has the same stuff in it that's in our urine. That's the other weird thing. It's called allantoin, but it's similar to urea in urine. And then you look at that and you go, wait a minute. So comfrey is a growth stimulant. So what is urine then? A growth stimulant. It's one of those dirty little words people go, so I know at least 36 people that are doing urine therapy, including me.
That's funny.
I don't do it very much, but I went hard and heavy a few years ago just to prove to myself I could. And I don't buy fertilizer for my garden. I use my urine.
That I've heard of. Like, I know you can use your urine and your feces as well as natural, fertilizer, compost.
I'm not supposed to talk about the number 2, but yeah, I have number 2 human composting going on too. And
yeah, I bet.
I just did a bin that was ready in 3 months. You have a composting toilet, and you get mulch in there, and then you put it out in the sun with a little moisture, and it broke down. And I had my housemate who is more germophobic. I said, hey, smell this bin over here. And he's like, what am I smelling? And I go, that was poop 3 months ago, bro. completely broken
That's
down.
funny. What do you think of that?
He had that shocked look of like, are you kidding me? And I put my hand in it and was mixing it around. I go, these are all turds, bro.
He's rethinking all his life choices at that point.
I got to finish this story. So you didn't even get to 25 yet. So fast forward then, and I'd gotten the yoga class. Oh my God, the yoga class is a story. So I go back to Cal Poly. I'd missed the fall quarter because of the broken neck. I broke my neck in August. There was no way I was going back to school and walking around college with a freaking halo brace on. Look at the freak. I looked like, my friends called me Tron. Robotron was my nickname. Hey, Robotron, how you doing?
You should have got like the RoboCop glasses to go with it or something. Halloween would have been a fun time of year for that one.
But to your point, I was working out in a halo brace too.
I'm sure it was better for you, to be honest with you.
I had to move, man. I'm one of those guys, I couldn't sit still all day. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward, I got the yoga, and then I was like, oh, yoga's kind of cool. I don't believe in God. I didn't not believe in God, but I didn't believe in God. They call it agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
I was agnostic, so I was like, show me the proof. And so I got into yoga, and then my first yoga class, if there is a God, I was a 21-year-old man out of a broken neck. And I go into this yoga class at Cal Poly, and there's 60 women, the teacher's female, and I'm the only man, in these tight yoga outfits. And I'm like, oh my God, he just died, went to heaven.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, wow, 60 to 1, that's a good ratio. But I didn't ask any of them out. I was so intimidated and shy. And, I was like, if I could go back now, I would have asked out a girl every week.
Trust me, I always wish I could turn back time.
Right? So that got me into like meditation a little bit. I started meditating over the next few years, just a little bit. And I got this book by the famous Ram Dass, and it was called that's not Power of Now. It's just something about now. And so the query was, who am I? I've been sitting and meditate on, who am I really? What is this thing they call Craig, and who am I? In the middle of that, I sincerely was curious. And then there's this weird point where grace popped in, and it literally felt like a pop. And I left my body, and suddenly I was in this world. I popped up into this other world where there was a moon over here and a moon over here, and it was a bright yellow sky. And I'm looking around, and I'm going, what the fuck is this? Not really, just, and then, but I felt pure love. I felt like I was being held in the arms of pure love in this other world. And then the experience ended when I started to analyze what was around me too much. If you go into analysis, linear thinking, those experiences go away. And so I pop back in my body, and I'm like, I shouldn't have been thinking so much. I was analyzing. I should have just rested in the feeling, but that was round one. And I pursued that experience for another 14 years. And I made enlightenment a PhD study. But that experience changed the whole course of my life. Awakening experience of, what is this love they call love? And then at age 39, I saw what it was, and the seeking ended. And then so the last 21 years has been embodying my realization.
And this was through,
there's an old saying,
obviously.
There's an old, let me just,
Yeah, go ahead.
There's an old saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And I'm not making any claims. I am not claiming I'm enlightened. The ego does not get enlightened. We only see what's always and already here, and we go from driving the car to in the back seat. So when one sees what I saw, you cannot, if you're claiming, you're not there. So I can't claim shit because nothing changed other than spirit took the front seat. But my ego didn't change at all. All the faults, all the weirdnesses, nothing changed. There's no enlightened self. That's what you learn. There's no enlightened version of myself. There's the always and already.
And is it still dealing with that duality, that battle of thoughts within your head? Is it still dealing with, the temptations? Is it still dealing with all of those things?
The dealing is the work. There's no dealing for me anymore. So when there's polarity that arises within the system, I have a mantra that I've been using for about a decade. It's, how does that thought feel? And so when there's discord, it's like the discord is the work. You see the distinction?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like, I know that it's there when, like, I'm talking right now, and I know that when part of my mind is going, I can't believe what I'm saying right now, then I'm in that space. But if I'm rehearsing what I'm going to say and then say it, that's not the space I'm talking about. Channeling or sports. If you're playing football and you're in your head thinking about what you need to do the whole game, you're not going to be a successful football player.
It's that flow state
The
that
flow
a lot
state,
of
there you
people
go.
refer to it as.
Satori.
Yeah.
In Japan, they call it satori. It's complete immersion in the moment. Okay, so sorry I cut you off there.
No, you're good. I think the thing I was going to ask was on terms of meditation, when you were talking about, going to, this different reality for the most part, what helps you, I guess, silence the analyzation within your head or begin to let go? Or I think you see where I'm going at with this, to allow yourself to, I guess, fully let go, to embody that spirit.
Okay, now you're talking about the journey that this is the, see, you and we think the same way. It's like you think a little deeper, like, okay, so yeah, I never succeeded at meditation because I'm cerebrally oriented. So for my mind to go quiet, breathing is the first and most important piece because breath controls thinking. But if you're asleep at the wheel and your trigger, there's no access to breath because you're not aware that you need to breathe. So what I use is throughout my early part of my life, I had this root level prayer I called it. And it's like, God, divine self, whatever you are, help me stay awake so I can use my tools and get myself back to the home board on the Monopoly board, which is the present moment. So that was having that in the background running of, I need to be present. And the sticky notes were part of that. Helping me be like, wake up, you're over in the past, you're over in the future. And so what I use now is I tell people, take about 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds of inhale to a 6 count. You can do it right now. Exhale to a 6 count. And because that's where we're getting most of our vitality is the prana in the air. And we just don't realize it. And then by doing that, we're now with the breath means to inspire and expire. You inspire by the in breath. You expire with the out breath. Inhale, inspire, exhale, expire. And so that's the first one is a 6 count in and out. But if you're in the middle of a trigger, like I'm going to pick on a hysterical woman. There's hysterical men too, but generally women are, as a population group, are more hysterical than men. Generally, I'm not picking on women here. I'm just going to pick on one. Because I had a girlfriend that was a hysteric. And when they're in their hysterics, there's no way to wake them up. Except a hug, something physical, pushing them down the couch, rub their feet. But if somebody's spinning out in hysterics, there's no access to their breath to slow their mind down, right? And so you just let it slow down. And so for the average person watching this, if you're interested and you feel drawn to what we're talking about, then that interest itself is what's driving you. And to begin to get curious about what is this thing that's driving me. I'll give you an example. I was at a 5-day silent retreat here in the mountains at Mount Madonna here. And that was how, during those 14 years from 25 to 39, I sat in silence a lot. Because I was going to find out what enlightenment was for myself and not take anyone's word for it. I think you're the same kind of person. There was no way I was going to go on faith or go on belief. That, I said to myself. So one of these was a 5-day silent retreat. And I did a lot of 5-day, did a 10-day, the Vipassana, did a bunch of 3-day silent retreats, a bunch of days, fasting, cleansing. God. And so he said, he liked to say, oh shit, did I lose my digression there? Yeah, I lost my, we'll come back to that, I guess.
It's no worries.
Yeah, we just back to that present moment thing. And I think that bit of wisdom. Oh, wait, that's right. Okay, here we go. So I'm sitting there and, this is day 3 of 5 days. So it's day 3 of silence. And he's in front of 300 people. And he opens up his talk with, what ego in its right mind is going to spend 5 days staring at a wall? And he says, your ego didn't bring you here. The force that drove you here is why you're here, but it's not your ego, because no ego in its right mind is going to sit in a chair for 5 days. The ego wants to go on vacation and drink, martinis and all that. It doesn't want to sit in silence because the ego is a verb. It cannot exist in stillness and silence.
Can you quickly define what ego means to you?
It's the process of the healthy identification of spirit with matter. There are people in India who have woken up out of their body and they don't know which mouth to feed out of the crowd they're in. And so if you don't know who's shitting, if you don't know who to feed, that's bad. So the ego is a necessary function for spirit to identify with this body. That's probably a much different definition than a lot of other people would use, but that's based on...
Much different, yes.
Right?
Yeah, because what I'm familiar with is the ego is the internal part of yourself that keeps you safe. It is not necessarily arrogance. I think a lot of people tend to, conflate ego and arrogance, but it is, at least how I internalize it, is simply the thought process that keeps you safe. So, when you're acting within ego, you will do things that maybe take you away from your path, from your purpose, because you stay safe within the comfortable moment.
Oh, that's interesting. But it doesn't necessarily, it's not mutually exclusive to what I said either.
No. Well, because what you're saying is much deeper.
Right. Right.
Much deeper, for sure.
And there's a saying in the Tao, the old Tao Te Ching, the old Chinese book of wisdom, and it's related to what you're talking about. It says, this is a translation, so it may not be entirely correct. If you don't know when to fear, you are in fearful danger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. There was I forget his name. I seen it on a podcast not too long ago, but he's like an extreme rock climber, and he's like scales mountains and all this kind of stuff. And he was talking about how important it is to put yourself in legitimate danger. So your mind actually internalizes and goes, oh shit, this is what fear means. This is what actual danger is. Because if not, your mind has nothing to grab onto. It has no actual tangible examples of what experiences can cause what emotions.
Wow, that was what I saw myself doing. And like, okay, there's a 20-foot wave out there. It's breaking over 2 feet of water over jagged rocks. Gee, I could die out there to that point. And then the rock climber, gee, I'm on the west face of Yosemite Half Dome, and I'm going to fall 2,000 feet here. The consequence is I'm dead if I make a mistake.
Yeah. But to try and put yourself in somebody who has none of those experiences, I genuinely can't even imagine what the thought process is like. And like, there is still fear residing in, that person's head, but it is not, I guess, labeled appropriately, if that's the way to put it.
Well, the title that Ursula Le Guin, this is her translation of this Tao, the title of the passage I just said, she titled it The Right Fear. Most people have the wrong fear.
Exactly.
They fear authority. They fear embarrassment. They fear, right? They fear these lower level things versus real fears like loud noises, falling, right? There's natural fear where, oh shit, I'm looking over the cliff here. Well, the fear is what holds you back from falling over the edge, is what it does.
Yeah. Shit that keeps you from losing your life and not losing your...
Yeah, exactly. So if you're watching this and you're still with us, or you tuned into a clip, the fact that you're interested in watching it is the higher part. And just get curious, like, that's where I started. What is this? And because you're not there, and you can't get there by wishing you're there, because anybody who's already there will look at you and go, you're not there. But you can fake it until you make it to some degree. Like, I'll give you an example. The Tibetan, one of those peaceful mantras I used to roll my eyes at, and I didn't believe it for a couple of years, but I just kept going at it, and it is, may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be happy. And repeat. And I would repeat it to myself when I was driving in traffic, completely angry and upset, and didn't believe it for a second, but I kept at it. I kept using the mantra, and then the sign of progress then, this is why you need a guru. The sign of progress then was the mantra popped in without my effort about a year and a half in. The mantra like popped up in my head without my trying to think about it. And then I asked my teacher, and he said, that's the first step where the higher self and you have made a bridge. That because it was a thought. It wasn't thinking anymore. It was a thought, to your distinction earlier.
Yeah. Here, give me 1 second. These AirPods just died on me. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
No worries.
Hey, you got me, Greg?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. For some reason, it made me leave and rejoin, but we're back now. Whatever, technology.
Oh, you gotta love tech.
Yeah, oh yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
I know you're gonna edit this out. The thought. Wait, now we have an echo.
I got you.
There was no echo before.
It's because I took it off my headphones.
So there's nothing I can do.
Is it bad?
Pretty bad. Everything I say is repeated back.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
And you can hear it.
Yeah, let me go grab. Give me 2 seconds. I have another pair of headphones. Stupid things just died on me. 1 second.
That's a good bet, friend.
I might have to leave, and the Riverside's kind of silly. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Wait, I think the echo went away.
Did it go?
The echo's gone.
Perfect. Then it worked. All right, we're all good now.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sucks when you have I've had so many recordings ruined by bad audio, or so you got to have that. Yeah.
Well, even this, it just throws a little fork in the conversation. I forgot where we're at. We'll pick back up on it.
I got it. So the difference between thought and thinking, and so that experience. Wait, we're going back to the average person viewing that experience, and I was trying to help people identify with. There's involuntary thoughts that you can't control, and that's kind of what we were grounding on is versus thinking
and internalizing that mantra you were talking about as well.
There you go, the mantra. Yeah, there you go. So, but when the mantra pops in without effort, Like my friend challenged me 6, 7 years ago to sit in the mirror with the lights down in the bathroom and stare at myself in the mirror and say I love you to myself. And
or even just look at yourself in the mirror and have a conversation with yourself.
And I tried that, and it was so weird. I took a couple of months off. I was like, okay, I didn't believe it. I thought that I loved myself, and then when I went in time to say it and sit down, I'm like, if it's weird, I still got work to do. So I did some work, and then, the sky I'm a sky browser, so, the geoengineering just really saddens me. So one day I was out on my bike feeling sad because I didn't want to be outside because the sky looked like a tic-tac-toe board. And I get nauseous and headachy when it's like that because you're breathing in all that nanized aluminum.
Are you talking about like chemtrails and that kind of stuff? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I keep it soft, but there's definitely through lab work. We know there's aluminum, barium, and strontium we're breathing in through this stuff, and amongst other things, but we won't go into that. So I'm feeling sad, and I'm trying to get out of my head experience, the thinking part about it, and just trying to care for myself on this bike ride because I wanted to move. And then it was like the whole sky talked to me, and it said, I love you. And I just lost it on my bike. I had to pull over. I was so much tears in my eyes, and I'm like, it finally happened. I love myself more now because it popped in without my thinking effort.
Mm-hmm. It became a part of you.
Yeah, it was like the Jungian psychologists talk about the inner marriage. The left and the right brain, the masculine brain and the feminine brain marry. And the Jungians call this the inner marriage. So my inner marriage was having some good sex, some good intercourse of the two sides.
Yeah, that's that'll always do you in right. Something I had from earlier that you had said. You had said you don't believe in viruses, right?
I don't like belief, so we'll start with that.
Okay, fair enough.
People quite dead, but I've made a long study of things, and I don't say things unless I have some ammunition to back myself up.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this document, like we could share, and I could show everybody. It's Harold Hillman, called The Living Cell. And he was the first person to kind of start looking at this, or one of the first. And they've never, ever, not in the history of virology, have they gotten the full DNA sequence on any virus ever in the history of virology. Never.
So they're not live
None of
viruses.
Them. Zero full. That's why the guy who developed the test they were using, I can't remember the name of it, for the COVID phenomena. One of my old friends posted that he was proud he was jabbed on Facebook, and all of his yes friends were like, oh, I am too. And then I came in and just went, because I know a client whose daughter got her first booster, turned around, and dropped dead. So I said, good job promoting poison, buddy. Good job normalizing poison. I just hammered him. I don't debate people online. I just drop bombs and I leave. It's about proper use of energy. They need to wake up. And I'm the mechanism, I'm the match, going to wake their butt up. Because why? I had a thought. And it was a true thought of, go ahead, let him know how you feel. He's posting publicly, and he was shaming people during COVID, people like me. So guess what, buddy? You get karma right back in your face. Okay, back to the virus thing. So if you haven't, this test, the guy, Kerry Mullins, I happen to know his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? He conveniently died right before COVID. And he said, this is not a diagnostic test. And then he died. And then they used it as a diagnostic test. Yeah. If I hadn't known his assistant, I would never have known that. And then, so they get like a fourth of the DNA sequence or a half. And then it's all inference beyond that. So the PCR test, there it is, the PCR test. So what they did was they would change the cycles and say, oh, look, everybody's sick. But it's all an inference. And then when they were jabbing people, look, it's working now. And they changed the cycles of the PCR test. It's a little clever sleight of hand. They've been doing it ever since the United States started. And I got more evidence there. So if you haven't identified the full DNA sequence of a virus, and Koch's law means, okay, somebody has this sickness, you go inoculate another person, like you put the swab up one person's sick nose and then put it in a person who's healthy, they should get sick. But that's not happening. That's not happening. So even Koch's postulate doesn't come true with this. And so there is a virus phenomena, though. There's no doubt. You can't say there's not a phenomena going on because, okay, John is sick, he goes home to the wife, and then she gets sick. Well, what is that? It's transmissible. But if they don't exist, then how is it transmitting? How is wife getting it from John if there's no phenomena, right?
So do you believe it's purely belief-based and you're basically making yourself sick?
Now this is why you are who you are. Okay, let's go to that one. Guess what fear gets your immune system? I studied this during COVID. There's two main parameters in the negative of what fear brings to your immune system.
I'm not going to know off the top of my head. Some sort of bacteria, contaminant, something, maybe parasites, something along the lines of that, something like cell deteriorating to a degree. You can't regenerate for sure.
Those are great guesses, bro.
Two things. Yeah, some sort of paralysis within your nervous system. I'm not 100% sure, but that's probably my best guess.
It's like a contraction, right? Fear is like...
Sure. Well, it's so funny you just said that because you had made a point earlier, mental process-wise. There's something I personally internalize. It's will this decision expand or contract my being? And you could feel it. You could feel it in your head when even you say the word expand, you feel your mind open up. And when you contract, you tighten. You just get you get constrained. But I'm antsy. What are the two things that happens to your nervous system?
So the two words relate to what you're saying, but they're not the perfect answer. So hypoxia, lowered oxygen in your system, is one.
Got it.
And immune dysregulation is the other, whether that's white blood cells off or the types of white blood cells. Because you've got different soldiers in your body. And when you get a white blood cell differential in a lab work, it breaks down the five main. You got your infantry, you got your Marines, you got your garbage trucks, you got your special forces, and you got another type of special forces. And I won't name those because people won't remember anyway. So those are the five. And so when I look at someone's immune numbers, it's like, oh, look, your neutrophils went way up. The infantry went way up. And now you have less Marines and special forces. So that means something. And that's because the body's trying to whatever is bothering it. And so if that doesn't work as well, then whatever this is. And so here's what Augeneus, and boy, try and spell that name, Augeneus von der Planitz, of the primal diet, he was wiped out. They wiped him out because he was talking about vaccines in 2007 and 8. He was saying the swine flu vaccine's a bunch of baloney and don't do it. And they sent two guys over to Thailand, two black-suited men, at his bedside and tried to poison him, and he ended up surviving and living a couple more years. Augeneus said viruses, and I have other evidence to back this up, which I'll mention in a second. Viruses are like things our cells make to clean up toxicity around the cell.
So viruses heal you.
Our body's making them to clean up garbage that hasn't been taken out. Because if you're surrounded by toxic people, what are you going to do? You're going to act like this. And a cell that's in because cells are mini-me's. Cells are mini us's. And so if they're in an unsafe environment, they're going to get all armored, and the cell membrane's going to get thicker, and it's going to, the immune system's going to get in there and be overactive. Just like if you give a cop 25 cups of coffee, they're going to be a little itchy trigger finger, And same thing with our immune system. So you got to think of it like, if you're in a room of toxic people, you're going to want to like break out and get all this toxicity off you. All these people, like, get the hell away from me, at least if you're empowered. And on live blood analysis, cells should have a halo around them. You can see these when they poke your blood and look at it on a slide in dark field microscopy or live blood cell analysis. The cells should have a little halo around them. And if it doesn't, your life force is low, and then those cells are more easily beat up. So the virus then is the first line of defense. You could use the word, I saw this word going around during COVID called exosome. EXOSOME. There are cells were making these things called exosomes, and maybe those are viruses. So that was mainstream, getting around a little bit. And now I'm going to rewind back 26 years to the year 2000. I had been in Mexico for Y2K, Zihuatanejo, to get out of, I thought there was going to be the end of the world with 1999. I bought into it 100%. So I'm down in Mexico. I figured if I'm going to die, I would rather die down in Mexico.
Fair enough.
And so then nothing happened, and I'm over there, and I'm like, shit, and I'm, digress too far. Down in Mexico, and so I came home. Shit, remind me, a couple of brain farts today.
We were coming up on viruses.
Okay, virus. Thank you. So I come back to Santa Cruz, and my hometown, and I joined the Santa Cruz AIDS Project, and I'm working with people with HIV. I don't even remember why. It was called SCAP, Santa Cruz AIDS Project, and I thought, that'd be a nice thing to do. Oh, now I remember why. I went and saw this woman who was one of my mentors, and she said, the symptom, you're 35, 36 years old now, and you're not giving back to the world yet. So some of your problems are nothing more than you need to give of yourself. So that was my first give back to the world of like, I need to volunteer somewhere. So I thought, I'll give bodywork to people with AIDS. So in that, I read this book It was a meta study of a couple thousand people in New York State from 1990 to the year 2000. And here's the takeaway out of that book, which relates to our conversation. They said, in our opinion, based on this study of people, viruses are an internal mutation of our own cells. Exosome. Internal mutation.
See, I'm trying to digest all this. This is very new information to me, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it for the most part. So re-explain that again one more time. I'm sorry.
So mutations like alchemy, right? It's a transformation, right? So a lot of what HIV was, Fauci was involved with that, by the way. They're bioweapons. The first bioweapons arguably were in World War I. And they call those mycoplasmas, and they put these mycoplasmas all around them. They were trying to wipe each other out with these germ warfares. And then that evolved over the last 100 years, and that's what the Ukraine thing was, is there was CIA biolabs. That's why Ukraine was such a thing, is they're trying, these evil, satanic, alien, running the world, whatever they are, they were trying to go poison all of Russia and all that area with these biolabs in Ukraine. And so you could say HIV is an invented bioweapon they're calling a virus. And so our cells are way more mutatable than you realize. So if you put them if you feed them like shit, put them in an electromagnetic environment that they shouldn't be in, like, guess what caused the first big epidemic? This is in The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg.
Caused it?
It was like 1800s. Hint, hint.
I mean, it's got to be some sort of external conflict between countries, nations, something like that, I'm guessing.
The electrification, when they put up electric lines on the earth, people started getting sick from the EMFs, from just the electrical lines.
Okay.
And in 1850 or 40 or 50, when this was going on, there was a study, and 30% of the population was electrically sensitive. And then when they put up radar,
what that's like nowadays.
Then the Spanish flu epidemic in the late 1800s, that's when they put up radar. And that was the next virus problem. But it was radiation induced from radar.
So a lot of the viruses are EMF produced.
You know, COVID was planned ahead of time, and Epstein was part of it. Fauci was part of it. A lot of sinister people.
Talking about things even as mundane as like the flu, or even could be a common cold at that.
Radiation damaged tissue becomes mutated. And so I knew, because I have angels talking to me, I knew when I saw the word COVID-19, I knew it was a covert ID operation started in 2019. COVID. And then I asked myself, well, why are they doing this? And it was, they're going to launch the 5G, the next level of radar, and they're going to blame it on a virus. And that's exactly what happened. It was another way, because if you see the Earth as a harvesting ground for aliens, and you can find some evidence throughout history, or history is not true. We did not live the way we were taught. There's lots of things on this planet that...
Well, history as it's taught in America, at least.
Yeah, it's complete baloney. So if you look at it in a different light, then, I didn't want to get into conspiracy theories, but the problem with conspiracy theories is most of them are actually correct. And, it's just that people have a hard time with the mystery, right? So HIV, you could view it as these viruses. The earth has been harvested. The slaves, i.e. the humans, have made the infrastructure. Now the AI alien. One of my favorite old singers was interviewed in Britain in like the 80s, and he said back then the AI is an alien entity. The internet is an alien entity. David Bowie, that's who it was. If you know David Bowie's music.
Name rings a bell for sure, yeah.
So one of my pet beliefs that I don't really like belief, but is that, because there's a Simpsons episode where all the world leaders pull off their silicone masks and they're aliens underneath.
Mm-hmm. And the Simpsons too.
And it's the Simpsons who have made a lot of weird predictions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, they harvested the earth for the gold, they harvested the earth for the resources, they built their AI infrastructure now they don't need the humans anymore, so we're going to wipe them out. You have to think with a sinister mind to understand the sinister mind. And that's not comfortable for most people.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, I always think of it as thinking in extremes. I always think of, the worst possible and best possible outcome.
Right, exactly.
Well, what did they say? It was expect the worst, but prepare yourself for the best. It's one of my buddies told me that the other day. It was a good one. I wanted to ask you about a conspiracy, though, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one. I know you don't want to dive too deep into conspiracies.
Okay, let's go.
But do you know with Nikola Tesla and I think it's Frederick Trump with all of that stuff, or no?
I knew enough about Tesla to know that he was betrayed in a big way, and a lot of the early electrical stuff didn't need to happen the way it did. But I know that There's a lot of strange things around the Trump family that goes all the way back into Scotland, believe it or not, through the mother's lineage, his mother's lineage, I believe. And it would make sense because, like George Bush's father, Prescott Bush, he was a Nazi basically, and the Rockefellers were funding both sides of World War II.
Yep.
So these bastards have been playing us off against each other for basically 2,000 years. But what do you got about Trump?
Well, I don't have the full synopsis because this was passed on to me by someone else, but apparently Trump was Nikola Tesla's neighbor, and before Nikola Tesla got raided and all of his documents were took, Trump had gained his documents because he had gotten basically hinted that his documents were going to be took, and a part of that was, I don't know the right way to label it. It was a theory, a framework, a pattern for the I don't know, I guess the cycle of the world and like the economy for the most part. And Trump had gained that. And I don't have all the moving parts. That's why I wanted to ask you if you were familiar with it, because I kind of wanted to see what you knew about it. But a part of that was something about Barron in the future. So talking about Barron Trump in the future from back in that time. And talking about it now, like it literally just popped up in my head, but I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper into this and get back to you on it. Because I have like kind of the source that I was talking to about it with. But yeah, it was kind of just a curiosity thing. But I'll get some more information for sure. But it was, yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a weird coincidence.
I mean, it could be, but I had heard that one of the reasons that Trump even got elected in the latest election is because his son Barron was telling him, you got to get on podcasts, you got to promote yourself differently in today's world. And so he goes on Joe Rogan and blew up. And that was Barron's idea.
Huh.
So
I got some digging to do.
I wanted to point something out to the audience. If you're listening to this, there are people in my life that you just can't talk politics at all because people get stuck in the divisive red and blue. And I had journalism in junior high and freshman year of high school, and the first tenet of good journalism is you've got to look at both sides. You got to look at every side, and you have to remain objective. And so I saw that early on as I can go and banter politics with anybody because I'm not identified with it, but you go to people like family, and it's like I have to walk around in eggshells on my family, and that's why I don't hang out with my family, because I don't want to be an eggshell guy. I smash eggshells. And fuck, I'll smash your frickin' eggshells. I'm not interested in dumbing myself down so you can be comfortable. Sorry, that's not happening anymore.
Well, because obviously it took you a long time to get to this point, I'm assuming as well. Because back, you're 21, just going through the experiences. How did you deal with being misunderstood through, I guess, this whole journey?
To your worst case scenario thing I was always a worst case scenario is I'm dead, I'll die. Death was never scary to me, really. So it was like, so at age 20, I started having suicidal ideations. They were bad, really bad. And so I went to a teacher in the junior college here, and I asked him, he was my English instructor, and we'd kind of bonded. And he asked me about my diet, and I was like, diet and suicide? Like, what the hell? And he said, you're eating too much sugar. And so I was eating, college guy diet, top ramen and potatoes, and it was carb heavy. And so I cut back my carbs, and my suicidal ideations basically disappeared. I was like, whoa, wow. Diet was causing these weird mood swings. So I cut back on my carbs, and my mood swings weren't as much. But then they're still with me even now, FYI. Mm-hmm. They come, and then so I started to see that as when they came, I sort of found comfort in, well, I can always leave this world if it gets bad enough. But no, I was talking to spirits at age 4. I have an autobiography that still isn't published, but I have the manuscript, and in that I wrote a story about my invisible friends at age 4. And my mom heard me talking to them, and she said, you can't do that because people will think you're crazy. That's the worst thing to tell a child. Mm-hmm. So basically, I thought I was weird and broken and strange, and right. And instead of validating me, you can't do that. People think you're weird, which implies that you're weird. So that was a gut punch, and it didn't complete until my age 39 enlightenment. When the enlightenment thing finished, that was the first thing that came back to me was, that yearning you had for something your whole life? Those were your invisible friends acting as the siren's call, guiding you back home. And now I got my hair standing on end.
Mine, it's so funny. Mine just stood up too.
And so up until age 39, I didn't really want to live to be an old guy. I didn't want to live. I just wanted to get my work done and live a good life. And so I think tolerating it was, I'm not going to kid people, was I was kept alive in spite of myself. and my death wish and my chances and risks and edge walking and life-threatening experiences. And when I had to be honest with myself, I'm like, God, maybe I have a death wish, But I'll give you one good example of this. It's a good one. My friend and I are riding our bikes up this mountain here, Graham Hill Road, and we get to the top and we high five. And he's ahead of me on his bike, and I'm behind him. And he reaches back to high five me, and I reach forward, and his back tire clips my front tire. And we're going at a good speed. And so my front tire locks up, and I fly over the handlebars. And I'm midair, and time freezes. Mm-hmm. And I'm given instructions on how to land. As I'm in midair, frozen, time freezes, and it's like this little voice comes in and goes, tuck. So I tuck and rolled out of it and barely had a scratch. And the same thing happened when I had my head injury this summer. The same thing happened. There's like 5 or 6 of these where I should have died and time froze. And one time I did die. I fell over backwards from a forward bend, came up and then lost my balance and fell over backwards and hit my head on the back of my head on the corner of a table, like boom, and then knocked me out of my body, and my body was dead on the ground and I was floating above it going, wow, how cool. This is pretty nice. I don't feel any pain. And wow, everything's so light and fluffy, and this is great. And then this voice comes in and says, you don't have to go back if you don't want. I was 36 years old when this one happened, and I'd come back from Mexico, and I'm hovering above my body going, wow, I got a choice? Let's see. And then it was this sincere like, shit, I'm not done. I'm not done here. So next thing I know, I'm back in my body. And I've had about a half a dozen to a dozen of these where, and maybe you can relate, where everything freezes and then I'm given an out card. So
I think subconsciously
I was kept alive. I can't honestly say that, if I'm going to be honest and sincere, I didn't really want to be here on some level.
I have so much to go with that, but I don't think I've ever had the sincere near-death experience like you have. Like I've had some moments. I drive cars very fast, so I've had some moments where it is like split decision and you just end up making the right decision. And yes, I've definitely been kept alive more times than I can count. But there's also I've been kept out of jail. I've been kept out of many things. And I didn't realize it until my brother had actually said it to me. There was an instance where it was actually a psychedelic experience that I had where everything goes white. I'm going to just keep it long story short. Everything goes white. I come back to. I realize internally I have that kind of voice speak to me, and it says none of this is real. And I look around and everything is kind of almost grainy. I don't know exactly how to describe it. I'm not sure how many psychedelic experiences you had, but they're very, almost indescribable. But I have that internalization that we're living in basically a simulation, that we are living in a big illusion for the most part. And first thing, I decide I want to go tell my girlfriend all the things that I just found out. So I hop in my car, which at the time was a 650 wheel horsepower Mercedes.
Oh my God.
That literally sounded like gunshots getting fired whenever you let off the gas. It was insane. I am about 45 minutes away from her house, mind you. I hop in my car. Second I start it up, I peel out. I'm going probably 130, 140 miles an hour average on the highway, all the way down there doing stupid shit, like sticking my feet out the window, waving at people. Because for me, I think that literally none of this is real. And I just finally came to the realization that, none of it matters for the most part. And I get off the highway after 30 minutes of driving, or probably 20 minutes at that speed. And I always drive my windows down too. I love fresh air. I have to have it. I start seeing, there's a couple cars in front of me. I start seeing a ring of light go around my car, and cars start pulling over in front of me, and I start hearing da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ended up being a helicopter that was over me. And 2-3 seconds later, see 2 or 3 cops flick their lights on right in front of me. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucked. Because I knew what I just did, and I knew I was being, a reckless idiot. I think, somebody called the cops on me. Now they got a helicopter up. Now they're coming to get me. They found me. So I always try and do the right thing. I pull over into a dealership at that time and get out. Mind you, I have no shirt on, and I'm in just a pair of shorts as well. I get out of my car, and I had a bunch of shit in my pockets too, so I didn't want them to search me or anything. So I took my shorts off. So I'm in my underwear, and they asked me to get onto the ground face down, put my hands in cuffs, put my legs in cuffs, stand me up. I immediately go in, I go, whatever I got to do to not get this on the news, anything like that. I'm completely compliant. And the one officer is just like, chill, and just relax kind of thing. He takes me over to the side. There's 5 or 6 cops around my car. And he takes me over to the side and he's just talking to me one-on-one. I tell him everything that happened. I told him, I took 7 grams of mushrooms. I'm tripping my balls off. I smoked some weed. I I did this, I did that. Was just completely open and honest with him. He goes, okay. He puts me in the back of the car. 15, 20 minutes goes by, opens the car door, asks for some information. And like, I'm very sharp. It was a very surreal experience to me because I literally felt God over me the entire time, like guiding me. And I was like sharp as a tack. I gave him my name, my address, everything that he needed, whatever. Another 15, 20 minutes goes by. He opens the door. He says, who can we call? And at that time I was like, oh, that was like the biggest sigh of relief because he ended up calling my dad. And that's, long story short, who ended up getting me. But I think I ended up getting off with nothing on me. I ended up having like 2 or 3 ounces of weed in the back of my car too, a drug scale, a couple $1,000s in cash. Like I should have went to jail through and through. My car should have been impounded, should have been in jail for a long time, but I didn't. And I still think back on it sometimes. So I'm like, why did I not go to jail? And there's no, like, you can't sit back and try and dissect the experience. It just happened and you take it for face value. But it's so surreal how things like that do happen. Because if I was meant to go to jail, I'd be sitting in jail right now.
That's right. That's right. And jail is a whole other, jail breaks people, especially men, if you know what I mean. Why do some guys get tattoos when they're in prison?
To fit in.
Because they've been violated, if you know what I mean.
Not 100%.
Not 100%. The prisons now, I hear, are not as bad as they used to be, but I have direct stories from men who have been in prison, and, rape is really real. You're someone's bitch in prison, and I'm not joking. This is from direct inmates I've talked to. So it's not in every case, but it's a fear. Like, I tell people, if I'm going to get pulled over, like I got pulled over a few months ago, and I asked myself, is today a good day to die? Meaning, resist the cop. And I got it on film. We went back and forth. And see, they don't know the law. They know the legal system. But the law is different, like the law of the commoners. And so I was using the law of the commoners. And he knew that. And in the end, any contract done under duress or force is not a contract. And that's what I voiced to him. I go, I'm not in commerce. The DMV laws are for commercial drivers. The driving laws are for, I'm not in commerce. You have no jurisdiction over me. And he says, I'm going to break your window and take your car, basically. And so the proper response to the officer when he says that is, I fear for my life and my safety of my property now. And in the lawful world, he's just a man with a title that's going to steal your property. And so by naming that, you've given him notice in the lawful system. And so when the tickets came, I never did anything. And I've been fighting it because the local tax people are trying to collect the ticket. And so I've noticed the tax people president and the collection agency president, and I've said, I wasn't under your jurisdiction. There's all these legal words, usufruct and all that, and I sent a letter to each of them. I just sent my first follow-up, and look at this. You do it the right way. These are my receipts of all the 3 people, the presidents that I sent, and they've signed. They've received my follow-up form, and I got this is the fight, is I'm not a sovereign citizen. I'm a man, M-A-N. And that's what the officer asked me. He goes, because guess what a sovereign citizen is in terms of our government? It's a terrorist. They're terrorists. So you don't want to be a titled anything. You just want to be, I'm the living man. And look at your driver's license, folks, when you get off the call here, and you'll notice your name is in all capital letters. That's not the real you. That's the fictionalized you that the United States Corporation has on their files. Why do we know that? Because it's all capital letters. That's the clue. So when your name is in all capital letters, that's the fictional self in the United States Corporation. And so we can fight that by saying, oh, no. You have all these tricky little legal things, but I'm not under your jurisdiction. And I've given you notice. So if you come after me, I'm going to charge you as a man. And that's what this says. It says, I'm going to charge each of you. You owe me $5,000 for my time. And if you take more of my time, I have other things that they've done that I won't name on the call here, but the franchise tax board, the tax people, when they sent me how much money I owed them, they sent another person's paperwork with mine.
Really?
And that's criminal.
Yeah.
They violated this man's privacy, so that's also in the paperwork. So if they come after me and try and take my money out of my checking account illegally, which they've done before, I'm going to say, okay, now your bill's up to $10,000 and I'm putting a lien on your assets. That's what this is basically saying. Go ahead and come after me. You're just a titled man. You're coming after my title. But I own my estate, which is the all capital letters. That's your estate. And it's so fucked up, man. There's so much to that conversation. But part of health is the integration. Like Carl Jung used to say, we're not here to ascend. We're not here for ascension. We're here to make the darkness conscious. And the USA is a dark, satanic entity. The government part. It's dark. We're here to either die trying or transform
Submit.
it into the new world.
Okay.
See, that new world order thing they've been spouting since 1580 that I told you earlier on the call. You know, when George Bush first said that, George Bush Sr., you know, 1,000 points of light, new world order. That's a code word to all of his satanic buddies. Like, you think President Trump or any of these presidents, these upper level leaders of the world, are talking to the population? They don't give a fuck about us. They're talking in code to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And these things don't come lightly or easily. Here's a great one about health. Okay. Oh, I love this shit. So
I'm ready.
I'm at this silent retreat, one of those silent retreats during that period I was in, and this guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, my heart's broken in a zillion pieces. My girlfriend left me," and you know, and my spiritual teacher he was married, but he wasn't. He said, "I'm like, disclaimer, I'm not a relationship advice guy, you know," but he would always end up giving good advice out of the channeled talk. You know? So this guy's like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? My broken heart, and I'm so wasted, and blah blah blah." And so this is in front of 300 people. No less, because that's the only time you could talk during these 5-day silent retreats was if he called on you. Otherwise, there was no talking for 5 days at all. So, you know, if you got a chance to talk to him, and you know, so this guy's up there, and he you know what he says? He goes, "So don't change it," and the whole audience gasps, like, "Just leave your heart broken," and everyone's like, "What?" And then he goes, "Look, a broken heart is an open heart, and what we do is our heart breaks open, and then we stitch it back together with a new identity." He goes, "Try not fixing yourself and letting your heart stay broken open." And I had it happening right now. I had this moment of revelation. I went, "Oh my God, all my heart breaks, and I've been keep sealing the damn thing shut. Why don't I just leave the damn thing open?" It was such a moment of revelation. Let your broken heart stay broken but open.
It's powerful. Very powerful.
Wow. What? What did he just say? So he gave all of us permission to not walk around with a victim broken heart, but an empowered broken heart, where we're learning now because we're open to actually receive more than if we're stitched up in our next identity.
What was it that I had heard? I don't know if it's going to come straight to it. It's very similar to that point, but something about, just sitting in, I think it's that uncomfortable feeling, like that void within your head, or I guess within your mental, that uncomfortable feeling, especially when you're breaking old habits and old beliefs. You have that gap from, you have your old identity, you have your new identity, you have the gap in between. That's that uncomfortable period. And I think, kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, filling that uncomfortable period with BS is, you know, putting the heart back together instead of leaving it open.
Absolutely.
The one last thing, because it might have that same kind of like that shift, is that space your nervous system is detecting it as unfamiliar. And when things are detected as unfamiliar, it is seen as threatening. Although it is simply just unfamiliar, it is still a safe space, but your brain instantly picks it up as this is not right. This is threatening, but it's not.
That's right. There's a part of our brain back here in the reptilian rear brain that it actually senses enlightenment as a threat to the personal self.
Really?
Yeah, this is the projector screen. Yogananda used to say this. The third eye is the projector screen, but back here in the medulla oblongata is the movie projector, the projector and the screen. And so back here, that's the thinking brain and the primal brain, the marriage again. And St. Matthew said, "Let thine eye be single." That's part of that. Mary, when there's no longer a choice, because a choice is based in dualism, when there's just the flow, and this is the way to go. Oh my God, I got a rhyme there. There's the flow, and this is the way to go. I mean, go on without even trying.
That's good. I'm a poet. I didn't even know it.
That was another long conversation I could talk about, but I was just prompted because we're kind of, God, it's been a long time. To mention the body is the bridge for the spirit, and in alchemy, that's another reason why I'm alchemy, is there's the air element, there's the fire, and then there's the salt or the earth element. And so the blood, that's why it's called sangre. It's the sacred transformative element of consciousness to matter. You could see it as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. There's different ways of looking at this. And so what I realized is when one of my veteran friends called his body a meat bag for his spirit, I said, you know, I take offense to that. I go, my meat bag wants to be called an earth suit. Thank you very much. So stop calling your body a meat bag and call it your sacred earth suit for your soul. And so one of the things I've been teaching, and this is not theory, this is the subtle science of spirit, emotions, and matter. And so, yes, there are spiritual foods. Yes, there are non-spiritual foods. Yes, there are spiritual herbs. I grow them. They're called rasayanas. Think rasa, Rasayaana, and the Ayurvedics call them rasayanas. And those are herbs that facilitate the union of body, mind, spirit. We're not taught this stuff, but I know it for a fact because people that take Bacopa moneri or Brahmi in India, they've studied this herb for thousands of years. And guess what? People that take this herb have a higher IQ. People that use iodine have a higher IQ than people who don't use iodine. It's stuff you're never going to see because they want us dumbed down slaves. Who's the they? That's another long conversation because that's the intelligent question is, okay, Craig, you said they. Well, who is this they? Well, you want to hear? I'll give you an hour. I'll give you an earful for an hour, who the they is.
You're gonna need a week.
Even more than that, it's been a lifetime, So the point then is to see the distractions, like, here's a good distraction. And I'm not picking on coffee. I'm just going to point something out here. It's about the propaganda, the narrative. So why do you think plants make caffeine?
I know this one. It fends off predators.
Yes, and one more thing. It's an insecticide.
Okay.
So somehow the powers that be have convinced the whole earth that an insecticide and a plant predator poison is somehow good for us.
That's my fuel.
That's one example. So a little bit of caffeine in the studies enhances blood flow to the brain, like less than 30, 40 milligrams. But when you get into high doses, which most people are doing in the hundreds of milligrams, it shuts down blood flow to the brain by 35%. You can look it up. This isn't This isn't mystical. You can look it up on Google. Hidden in plain sight.
What about nicotine as well? Because I know that's a big one too.
I have friends that are really into it, and my friend gave me a nicotine patch. That's what this is. I put it on a couple of days ago, and I got kind of nauseous. So the mystery with nicotine, and this is why you talk to freaks like me. Okay, so what is nicotine? Turns out B vitamin deficiency, specifically pellagra, used to be called the 3 deadly Ds: diarrhea, dermatitis, and dementia. Well, so B vitamin deficiency affects the mind, the gut, the diarrhea. The dementia is the mind, the diarrhea is the gut, and the dermatitis is the skin. So if you have skin problems with your brain, and problems with your gut, you probably have B vitamin deficiency on some level. Okay, well, how does the nicotine come in? Craig, you've digressed again. Okay, so niacin has a couple of forms, and one of them is niacinamide. Niacin's the one that causes the flush, but the niacinamide form of niacin is related to nicotinamide from nicotine. So I believe people that do well taking nicotine are B vitamin deficient, and they're relying on the nicotinamide pathway to give them what they could have gotten through food. And nicotine's a deadly poison too. Some of that's it's not as deadly as they say, but if you take pure nicotine, you're not going to be able to take very much. Like, one cigarette is 1 milligram of nicotine, they say. One American Spirit, not the Marlboros. So if you're going to look about nicotine, I think Dr. Brian Ardis is worth watching. He's got a great talk on rumble.com. Brian Ardis, BYRANARDIS. Brian Ardis he's the guy. And I like cannabis, and what I do is I got my little water pipe, and I'll put a little bud in there and have a little tobacco in there with it. And the tobacco drives the cannabis deeper into my body. Is the only way I could put it. Cannabis is a feminine plant ally. Tobacco is a masculine plant ally. Again, there's another little marriage there.
Interesting. What's your opinion with cannabis? Because obviously
I've grown it off and on since I was 25 years old. And when they call it weed, it's really true. It is a weed. It makes a lot of seeds. And so if you look at it on sort of a base level, the earth hates bare soil. How do I know that? That's why we have weeds. So weeds are when you see like an area that's kind of all the plants are ripped out and you just see the bare earth, that's a wound on the earth from the earth's perspective. And the earth brings in the pioneer plants to stitch up and bandage the wound. So cannabis is really good for that. Think about how nature, you plant one seed, like a cannabis plant, and it'll make 10,000 seeds. What does that tell you about nature? It's naturally abundant, isn't it? Nature takes chaos, all these elements get made into a seed, and turns it into order, which is 10,000 more seeds. So cannabis is a professional at that. And then there's the cannabinoid thing. And if you wanted to do, I have a couple of talks that are on my Rumble channel that I've done in front of colleagues, because people ask me to do talks about cannabis all the time because none of my colleagues want to touch it. But I don't have any shame. I don't have a license to lose. I don't give a crap. I'm going to talk about it truthfully. So the endocannabinoid system, endo meaning inner, there's this thing called anandamide, the bliss you can get through doing yoga or meditation or whatnot. So cannabis, depending on the form you're using and how you're using it, can enhance your endocannabinoid system. But when you're smoking it, there's a price, which is the carbon. And if you're taking it orally, the only price might be cannabis dilution. Some people just don't do well with it because they don't need exogenous cannabinoids. They're making enough internally. So my theory is people that are drawn to weed, cannabis, they have deficient endocannabinoid system. And the people who have a healthy endocannabinoid system, they use cannabis and they freak out because they don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in this surfing scene here in Santa Cruz when weed was illegal and people were still growing it. And I should tell you something, like it's considered illegal and people are growing it in every backyard in my area. You could smell it walking down the street during the September, October months. And it's like, God, people are risking a lot to, their homes in some cases. They would take people's homes if you were growing cannabis. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't like it. Like I said, I was straight at age 21 and then I broke my neck and then my friends started hotboxing me in the house, or we'd go out for a drive to get me out of the house and they would hotbox me and I'm like, guys, I'm straight. And then I started like going, why am I
getting
so
secondhand high?
Why is my heart racing? And oh my God, I'm going to die. And they're all laughing and having a good time. And I'm sitting in the backseat of my car, my friend's Plymouth Duster. It was a 1972 Plymouth Duster. And we're driving around town and my brother and him are, I can say his name, Casey. My brother and Casey they're cracking up, having a good time. And I'm in the backseat, having AFib. My heart's beating out of my chest. I'm paranoid. And I'm like, and then this little thought pops in. It says, hey, Craig, how come they're having such a good time and you're having such a horrible time? And then I realized I'm the problem, not the weed. And I started doing some work, and within a few months, I was enjoying cannabis.
It's so funny you just said that. I had that same thought 2 hours before we were getting on this call. I do battle with cannabis use, and I feel like it is something that I need to stop because it almost holds me back. But that was one of the things that I had thought earlier was literally what you just said is I have so many friends, I have so many people who use cannabis who still function, who still do everything they need. Maybe I'm the problem.
Okay. I have an article, maybe we can put it in the description, and it's on my substack.com account. And I've done 6 parts to it, and it's based on Stephen Herod Buhner's work. Oh, I have the book. Stephen Herod Buhner's work. Here's the book. He's dead now. Rest in peace, Mr. Buhner. Look at the title of that book.
Plant.
He has another one called The Lost Language of Plants. Love this guy. So he came up with this concept. He called it the sensory gates. And modern, you can look it up on Google. So we gate reality. Like we filter out certain things. And so when we take an entheogen, and that's why cannabis is called a gateway drug. It's not a drug. It's a gateway plant. And it ungates us a little bit. Versus like LSD or psilocybin will ungate us potentially a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And so the trouble is so this is all in the brain. And so the article is called The Sensory Gates. There's 6 parts to it in my Substack account. And I directly address what you're talking about in those articles. Now, here's why I call myself an involuntary shaman. Because I would have shamanic experiences my whole life. I think you can relate. And so when we ungate, we can see things we couldn't see before, but the beings and the energies that live in these other realms that we've ungated to have access to us now. And we call this possession. And it's why you don't want to approach entheogens without having done your baseline work on your ego, because when you blow the ego up into a million pieces, i.e. the DMT experience, and you don't have a grounded foundation, you could be possessed.
You're lost.
You could be possessed. You could become lost. I've had leprechauns open portals for me on Salvia Divinorum. This leprechaun went whew, and opened up this portal, and he's like, come on in, let's play, and go to the other universes. And I'm like, without an anchor in this world, I ain't going over there. Even being blown up, and there's no identity. There was no Craig making that decision in this world, but there was the higher part of me, which what I was tethered to, was like, no, you're not going in there. And so the struggle with cannabis, there's a sincere part of like, okay, yeah. And I'll tell you the punchline is, I've done a long-term study because there's a lot of drug use here in Santa Cruz in the surfing scene. And I've seen 30, 40-year drinkers of alcohol and 30 or 40-year cannabis users. And guess who the more fucked crowd is?
Alcohol. No, hands down. Yeah.
By far. So what I'm seeing more recently with the stronger strains of cannabis, medical doctor, Dr. Yoho, had published this on Substack. And he was talking about cannabis toxicity, and there's definitely toxicity when you're smoking it, but not orally. There's no toxicity unless you've got a contaminated batch of oral use. But we grew up, like, our parents grew up on like 1 to 3% THC. And I just saw...
Now it's 20 to 40%.
Yeah, I got one right here that a friend gave me from a dispensary, and I'm like, 39% THC. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
what the hell? And so I had two women in my life that I was dating, and they got cannabis and caffeine induced delusions, and they had to go into therapy. But when you're using something like this, you had better have a damn good intention for using it. You don't use it at my age, especially, to get high, because then you get possessed. My intention is to enhance my life and the lives of others around me. So every time I use, my intention is enhancement of myself and others. And my baseline mantra for that is, this is from the Big Leap book by Gay and Katie Hendricks, and it is, I create a create a world of abundance, and I wish others would have it too. They have these mantras that they implant, and so may I be filled with loving kindness is that. But if you're going to ask it for yourself, you've got to wish it for others. Mm-hmm. So the struggle then is natural, because here's another punchline for you. There's two different psychology studies I've seen that are about 10 years apart, and I wish I don't have the sources on them, but I think you can still find them on the web. And it's that people that use cannabis have a harder time being brainwashed than those who don't use cannabis. You're more awake.
I could see that for sure.
The shame and the guilt kind of puts you back to sleep. And I had a guy in a men's group. He was always like, his wife was a therapist, and so he'd stop using, and then he'd crave it and start using and shame himself when he's using, and then he'd stop using again, and he's in this yo-yo back and forth.
That's how I am right now.
I'm like, hey, dude, why don't you let go of the story about it and either not use it and stop making up the story over the last year? Look at all this energy you're expending in the story. Or just use it and be at peace with it, and then not use it and be okay when you're not using it, and just let your mind. The trouble with the mind is if you let it be, it finally gets quiet. If you let the mind be, well, here's my challenge to people. I had a woman that she thought she was chill. She was my assistant years ago, and I just gave her this look like, you're not chill. And she's like, what? And I go, okay. Go home and ask your 3 best friends tonight if they think you're chill. And she came back the next day with a scowl on her face. She's like, you asshole. My friend said I'm not chill. I'm like, hey, I'm just telling you the truth. I go, so why don't you try this meditation here? And so what I told her to do was just sit in a chair, get comfortable, set a timer for 5 minutes, and let everything be. Don't manipulate anything. Let your thoughts be, let your sensations be, let your body be. Just don't manipulate anything and see what happens. She comes back the next day and she's like, holy fuck, I don't think I've ever let myself be before. That's what changed her life, and she got into insight meditation because of that 5-minute experience. And that's what my slogan for my practice is of Health Alchemy is, I'm here to give you an experience you cannot deny versus a concept. Mm-hmm. She had her experience. Now her life was never the same after that. But a concept and a belief can change in half a second. But when we get an experience of health, and so if I'm going to give you advice, it's that if you really think you need to move beyond it, then you need to plant another healthy habit in its place and let the healthy habit push the cannabis out. Mm-hmm. But if you stop cannabis and leave a void, something else is going to fill that void you may not want to fill it. So like, I'm a daily user almost. I'm on a cleanse. I'm leading a group health reset. So my cleanse goal is no more than 3 uses of the water pipe a day, which is generally in the evening. And some days like yesterday was 2, and one day it was like 1. But I do it because my rebellion against this weird world is to keep myself alive. Mm-hmm. And so it enhances me enough that in the evening at the end of the day, if I had a girlfriend, I wouldn't use the cannabis, but it's my female friend. It is a feminine ally. And women will tell you, I could have been married to 9 solid women, but they wouldn't be with me because I used cannabis. Why? Because they're jealous of the feminine ally. A woman wants a man 100%, not 99.9. They want 100%. And so if you're tethered to cannabis, they're going to be jealous of that. So if I have a girlfriend, I had one girlfriend, she's like, look, have your boys' night out once a week and smoke once a week, and that'll make your part happy. But then I don't want to be around you when you're smoking because I don't like the way we communicate. It's totally fair, right? And so it's for where most people are at in their use, and maybe you, is like, just examine your intentions. Like, oh, am I using it to avoid? Not a good use, right? Because for me, cannabis enhances how I'm already feeling. So if I'm down, I don't use because it makes me focus on down. But if I'm good, had a great day, boy, it takes me up there. It enhances where I'm already feeling. Enhancement. If it's avoidance, I can't avoid. Like, I was only unconscious once when I drank. I only went unconscious once, and I got raped. The first time I got drunk, a friend betrayed me and woke up with the ugliest girl at the party on top of me when I was in 8th grade. It wasn't her fault. It was his fault. And I thought about him the other night because it's one of those, like, I think he's still in my area. I could name him and shame him, but he may have moved on and become a good person. So I could ruin his life. But I'm not going to do that because it was fucking 50 years ago almost, you know? Give the guy the benefit of the doubt that maybe he changed. But each of us, you know, so it's like, would I use to avoid the pain of that experience? No, not a good use. So that's the question I ask myself is first of all, is this a choice or am I just doing my daily thing, you know? And that's what this girlfriend gave to me was like, you know, whatever you're doing in your life, if it's not a choice, you probably need to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry if I sit here and go silent a little bit. There's just so many different pieces that my mind grabs onto. And like you said, there's probably so many different conversations that could be had around this stuff. But I guess we're coming up on 2 hours here. Just to polish off this recording, because I honestly don't know what you have going on, but I have another meeting at 4:30, so I have like just about another hour.
I should probably go too, yeah.
Fair enough. I guess over everything we went into, what is a functional way somebody could start to begin to implement these kind of practices into their lives and, you know, begin to start to make some of these kind of changes? I know we kind of briefly touched on it in the beginning.
Yeah, it's a good synopsis. Like, I like to ask people, you know, what's free and easy? So what I'm here to champion is what can you do in the moment to moment of your life to change so breathing is one, you know, having sticky notes of reminding yourself, hey, take 3 deep breaths now. Stretching, moving every day is free. And that, to your point, just go for a walk after dinner if that's all you're doing, you know? And then, because rest and activity go together. So if you don't have activity, you're not going to rest well. And if you don't rest well, this is where people get stuck. Then they don't have energy to have activity. And then they're stuck over in the lazy, you know, oh shit, you know. So that's another one is like get in the cycles of nature. The best time to do intermittent fasting is 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's not skip eating all day and then eat in the evening and have the food rotting in your gut all night. That's stupid. It's absolutely retarded.
6 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
That's the best time to intermittent fast. So stop eating early instead of being the American way, which is skip breakfast, skip lunch, and then eat dinner when your digestion's at its absolute lowest. That's another one. Do you want spiritual consciousness when you're sleeping or food consciousness when you're sleeping? You're certainly not going to be in spiritual consciousness with a belly full of food at night. So that's another easy one. Get your sleep. Where I now have this blackout glasses, you know, this blackout shade on my eyes because you do sleep better when you're in complete darkness. In the world, if you're in an urban area, I don't care. You're not in a dark room. Put up your blackout curtains. Put something over your eyes. That will help, and that costs you about. Get a piece of black cloth at the thrift store, and that'll cost you like $1.
Put a shirt over your eyes.
Put a shirt. So moving to something you like, best outside. Get your bare feet on the ground. That'll ground out your nervous energy into the earth. I saw a guy with a voltmeter. He hooked his body up to the voltmeter, and it was like a certain amount. And then he hooked it up, got his bare feet on the ground, and the whole voltmeter went nuts because he now was grounded to the earth. So grounding therapy is free. Get real spring water. Get raw, structured water. There's natural pathogens, they're called pyrogens. Like I wrote about it in 1958, no less. So get real water from a spring. Don't heat it. I mean, people have gotten sick drinking my spring water. Why? Because they're getting the natural immunization of the natural germs in the earth back in their body with the structure of the hexagonal, you know, Buckminster-Fuller hexagonal pattern that's naturally in structured water. And there's a whole other conversation around our circulation and how our heart's not a pump related to this, but that's another 3 hours. So let's see. Making sure you're in the sunlight. Don't take vitamin D. I tell people, vitamin D, get sunlight on your skin. Because vitamin D, they take sheep lanolin, they shear the sheep, they steam the waxy thing that's in the sheep fur, they call that lanolin, then they put it through 30 plus chemical steps, then they irradiate it, and they're telling you that's equivalent to sunlight on your skin? No, it's not equivalent. You're fucking your mitochondria up. I've got proof. So sunlight's another free and easy. Hot and cold therapy's easy, like go in a really steaming hot shower, and then turn it ice cold, then back to, you do a couple of rounds of hot and cold. That'll get your circulation activated. That's free. For God's sakes, hug people. A 30-second hug increases your oxytocin, which is a building, loving hormone. So for God's sakes, hug people, you know? Yeah. That's free. See, sleep. Make sure your bowels are moving every day. If you're not having a bowel movement once a week, you're screwed. You got to have...
Once a week?
I had a client, her entire life, the doctors said one bowel movement a week was okay.
What?
I'm not joking. That's what I said.
Like three or four times a day.
That's what I said. I'm in front of this group of people, and this woman's going to get her spinal cord cut. Yeah, then you can't make up stories like I got. And so I'm like, no, we're not going to cut this beautiful young 21-year-old spinal cord just because she hasn't had
When
no
she was
one
21?
15 years. This has been going on since she was 6 years old, and she comes in at age 21 with the whole family. And they're like, what are you going to do, Craig? And I'm like, well, according to this intake form here, you say one bowel movement a week. I'm like, did anybody else catch this in the last 15 years? And they're like, no, everybody else thought it was okay. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start there. And so bowel transit time from mouth to the rear end is 24 hours. That's normal transit time. So doesn't it make sense that when you eat breakfast, yesterday's breakfast should come out afterwards? When you eat lunch, lunch should come out afterwards. So if you have 3 meals a day, you should have 3 bowel movements a day, the next day. The average is 1 to 2 a day. And if you're eating 3 meals a day, only having 1 or 2 bowel movements, then it's all backing up in the body, and then it backs up in the bowels here, and all the veins of the intestines go to the liver over here, and then shit.
It starts to put strain on it.
You've got, it's called auto-intoxication. You have all this toxic poop water, I call it, the poop water goes back to the liver and recirculates, and the liver's got to do even more work. If you would have just had a bowel movement, the liver wouldn't have had to process all that poop water. And so this woman had 26 poop water meals a day backing up in her body. And guess what? It affected her heart. So what did they do? They fried her atrial ventricular node electrically. And then you can't believe the things they were doing to this girl. And I had her fixed in 9 months. I mean, it cost a pretty penny because it was about, cost them probably $500 to $1,000 a month to see me and all the other therapy she was doing. But she couldn't have children.
But still nowhere near as much as it would have been to go to the hospital.
No, she's sick here, so that they were going to cut her spinal cord and she wouldn't be able to have kids. And so she's got a family and kids and a life now because somebody like me said, no, we're not doing that. So it's another one is just like, make sure your bowels are moving every day. If they're not, that's your priority. And how do you get them moving? More raw vegetables and fruit will certainly be an easy start to that. There's more things you can do, but more raw food will increase bowel movements too. Just anything raw meat, raw fish, anything raw. Trigger alert! I do say raw meat. Germs! He's gonna die! He's got worms crawling out of his eye. Yes, I.
Will you eat raw? Because I'll eat raw fish. Do you eat raw meat?
I'm gonna have it just in a minute here.
Wow. So
you can't
always
cleanse.
raw?
You can't detoxify if you're doing a cleanse eating cooked food because cleansing involves enzymes. And so when you eat raw food, you're getting the enzymes in the food. So raw meat digests itself because the enzymes that are digesting the meat are already in the meat. And if you cook the meat or the fish, then the enzymes that are in there, that's why meat smells. That's why they age it at the butcher. That's why they hang the cow and age it, because those enzymes in the meat are making the meat more tender because they're breaking down the meat for you. So eat more raw. I'll give you a quick story out of the Weston Price thing. There was these pygmies in Africa, and these white settlers or whatever looking at them, and they had this elephant they had killed 3 days ago, and it stunk, it's like, it smelled bad. And so they're going, you're going to eat this rotting elephant flesh? And they're like, yeah, we don't eat the smell. That was their enlightened way of putting it. 2/3 of the world uses urine therapy. 2/3 of the world eats more raw meat than you can believe. The whole narrative that our ancestors, caveman, had meat on a stick, cooking it over an open fire is not entirely true. A lot of our ancestors were eating raw meat. They weren't making fires. So there's all these, so I think I have these questions I ask. How are you sleeping? How's your bowel movements? How's your energy? How's your, connection with others? So one of the higher level things that that you're in a good place is when you have uncontrived natural gratitude. That's a byproduct of healthy. So if you have natural gratitude and appreciation for yourself first and life, that's a byproduct that you're in health of some sort. Let's see. Anything else we can synopsize? I try to just go what's free and easy, and that's why I do yoga every day, because it allows me to come back to the present moment. Because you and I have a lot of parallels. I see you as a younger version of me. I look at you and I go, oh, there I was. Yeah, there I was when I was younger. Definitely, So instead of telling people you got to buy the next thing or buy a $5,000 appointment with me, I start with what I call low-hanging fruit. Like when you're at the peach tree, you don't want to climb the frickin' peach tree. You want to just grab one and go. And that's so it is with health therapies. Okay, I can work on my sleep. I can work on my movement. I can work on my hydration. Things that you can control don't cost any money. Then you go to the doctor's office, and I just heard a story yesterday. You're going to die. You need these invasive therapies and drugs, and we're going to cut your appendix out and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, can you offer me any hope, first of all? What happened to first
right?
Do no harm, doctor? You go right to harm now. It's like, Your oath is first do no harm, and they don't take the oath anymore. So they go right to harm. What was COVID? I can't believe this guy posted that he was proud that he was jabbed just the other day. After all that we know, I'm proud to be jabbed? Dude, you're just asking to get heckled. And I did. I heckled him hard.
Well, I'm sure you were probably the only...
There was one other lady who I knew through my spiritual teacher, and she just asked him, she's like, are you sure you want to post this?
He'll look back in 5 years, something like that, be like, oh, shit.
I like this guy a lot, too. It was really disappointing. I was like, wow, dude, you are being a terrible example. Because the young people that didn't buy they didn't buy the coffee of the COVID thing, they look at him, and a lot of these kids are like, they're indigo kids. They're naturally awake. Like, if you had kids, well, you better watch out, buddy. They're going to rock your world.
Yeah. I think about it all the time, but it's almost scary to think about.
The kids, I told this mother the other day, I go, why do you think your kids are such brats? I go, you were a brat, and now you're getting the karma. The kids and pets, they show us our unrecognized dark spot.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true.
Pets are
especially the kids, because they are living like actual reflection. They can talk, they can interpret, they can do everything. And you're seeing the spitting image for sure.
Right. I'm just so pleased that you reached out to me, and I think we could have, like, I don't know how many, 9, 10 parts, we could talk every week for 3 months and probably still not cover everything.
I'm down for it. I'm game if you're game. Where can people find you, Craig?
Website's healthalchemy.com. HEALTH ALK as in kitten, not CH. ALK as in kitten, EMY.com. I'm on Substack, substack.com/Craig Lane, I think. I'm on rumble.com, and that channel is Health Alchemy, same thing. I'm on YouTube, Original Health Alchemy. Oh my God, I'm on Instagram. If you think social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm everywhere. But it doesn't mean I post mainly on Rumble and Substack now, because YouTube became a convenient way to boot people like me off if you just say the wrong thing. I still post to YouTube, but I have to be very careful because they're part of the problem. I hate to say it, but they are. And then I have a newsletter. So if you go to my website and sign up, I'll put you on the newsletter. And my Substack is free. My Rumble channel is free. I have paid subscriptions, but I'll be launching a WeFunder because I have a big project where we're going to offer community clinic healthcare and have a retreat center people can go to get educated. So I have an education system and a retreat center model that will be a how to live model. And that's up and coming. So come on and let's join and form communities and get out of this centralized stuff. And yes, use technology. It's great. It's a great tool. But don't be used by it.
There you go.
I'm all for the use of nature and technology aren't mutually exclusive, right? Like Tesla showed that. You can have technology that's clean, right? You can have it.
It's just like you said. It just needs to be used. It's all intentions. Even like we go back to the cannabis thing, it's all intentions.
There you go. Yeah.
That's one big thing I just highlighted out of this conversation for sure.
And Spirit had you reach out, and Spirit had me respond. So here we are, ending I didn't think we were going to talk this long. But,
me neither. And
I'm
this is the longest recording I've ever done, and this is the shortest it has ever felt. Absolute shortest. I don't know how it's been 2 hours. It doesn't make sense.
That's enchantment. I have an enchantment around me. That's the enchantment. That's the charm. A charm, an enchantment, a spell. That's what you just experienced. You joined my spell, my enchantment with me. This is very common. I'll talk to somebody and I'm totally present and you're totally present, and then suddenly an hour goes by and it seems like 5 minutes. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. Well, hopefully next week we get to the same experience.
Yeah, email me and let's work out a logistic for the next